So I made this piece for Peachtober of last year. The prompt was grub, and I immediately knew I wanted to do something with raccoons and trash. At the time, I was also in my mentorship with Giuseppe from the illustration department, and the assignment he had given me at the same time was to do an animal piece, but depict them in a way that is more natural and realistic for the species instead of humanizing them. And by that, I mean dressing them up in humans' clothes, making them look like they live in human society, so being the same size as humans and interacting and walking upright and everything like that. While this isn't necessarily nonfiction, because of the comedy and stuff I've tied into it, I think an art director could kind of see that I can depict animals more realistically. And it was fun figuring out ways to combine my mentorship assignments with things I just wanted to draw for fun. And I think that's just a good practice to have in general. Even when you're doing client work, is what can I make fun about this or tie it back to my personal interests so I have something to look forward to while I'm working on it. And this is actually one of my favorite pieces from last year, so I think drawing animals in a more realistic style is one of my favorites now because I know how to stylize them, especially if it's an animal that I love like raccoons. It's really easy for me to pull out the things that I find most appealing about them and emphasize them. And specifically with raccoons, their personalities are so strong. I follow a few different raccoon accounts on Instagram, so it was really easy for me to pull references that I love. Specifically with raccoons, I love their tails and their masks, and then just the fact that they're almost hand-like paws give them so much dexterity and everything. I was able to really put that into the story. So after showing this to my mentor, he recommended that I expand the pile of trash to kind of fill up the entire page. And this made it so much more dynamic and interesting to look at, and also let me showcase each individual element of the illustration in more detail because it wasn't all grouped together and kind of cluttered. I think when I imagine trash, I just think of a cluttered, gross pile, but when I'm thinking of an appealing illustration, this makes a lot more sense just artistically and adds a lot more design to it. It also just utilizes the space on the page a lot better, and I think if I was a kid, this is just a lot more fun to look at because your eye kind of travels around and you notice different things as you're looking at it. So this was just a fun challenge in general. How can I make something unappealing like trash appealing and fun to look at? So once I had the layout figured out, I went in with the Gouache Max Pack Retro brush, which is my favorite brush because it feels like I'm actually painting, and the colors layer on with really nice texture and kind of mix together like there's water in it. Anyway, can't recommend that brush enough, but this is probably my favorite part of working on an illustration, is just laying in the colors and then going back in on top with a pencil brush of some sort to lay in the detail. For this piece, I wanted to make sure that there were little mini stories happening everywhere. So at the front, you'll notice the two kids. One of them's eating a donut while the other looks like he's about to steal it. And I like this because it kind of makes you already start imagining what their fight is going to look like for the next page, if that's what the story is about. For the kit in the donut box, originally I had him licking the frosted, or like the plastic at the front of the donut box, but I end up changing that because I think he was just pulling too much focus, and once I put a darker color on the box, he just wasn't very visible. So I changed that to him laying down eating some donuts, and I think that's just a really cool little piece of story that you might not notice immediately, but as you stare at it longer, you'll get a fun surprise. And then one of the bigger challenges with this piece was figuring out what trash I want to draw and what trash is appealing and interesting to look at. And I didn't want this trash to be too gross. So that's kind of why I laid in some abstract dirt with texture in it, just to kind of fill in the space, because I didn't want to draw an entire pile of different objects because that was just going to take too long. And to get the colors to work together, I just thought that would not be the best way, I guess, to show the trash, because while the trash is the main piece of the illustration, it's really the raccoons that are most important. These are things you would find in my trash. And then a big change I made with this is going from a white background to black, and I think the black just really makes the whole illustration because it let me put rim lighting and moonlight on everything and just really gets across the fall night vibe by the end of this illustration, I feel like when you look at it, you can kind of feel that cold October air, and it just feels crisp to look at, which I really love. And I honestly think this is probably one of my top 3 pieces of all time. It is not the most complicated, it did not take the longest, but I think my vision just came through really easily, and with that feedback from Giuseppe, it just elevated it to the next level. So I just love this piece. I hope you guys enjoyed this time lapse, and wanted to call out, I did add the text as a recommendation from Giuseppe. I don't do that for all of my illustrations, but I think when it just works really well with the text, it's a great example for an art director to look at when they're imagining my work as a part of their project. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!